Swish. As the last of the ancient voice faded away, the many teams outside the abyss surged forward almost simultaneously, turning into streaks of light that shot toward the four sacred pagoda high in the skies above the nine heavens. Let's go. Without hesitation, Chen and his group set off at full speed. Within minutes, they appeared before the four sacred pagoda. As they closed in, they could truly feel the grandeur and immensity of the pagoda. Standing before it, they felt like ants in comparison. What they saw was only half of the four sacred pagoda, for the other half was shrouded in an endless dark evil light, making them hesitate to even glance at it. They could only imagine that on the other side of the pagoda, many experts from the extraterritorial evil clan had gathered. Boom. As the various teams arrived before the four sacred pagoda, the tightly shut tower gates began to slowly open, the deep rumbling sound echoing like thunder, filling the air. An ancient aura surged out. When the ancient gates finally opened, the eyes of the many teams grew fiery with anticipation. However, none of them rashly entered. Instead, they exchanged glances. Ahem. Everyone should be clear on the will of the ancestor from before. Chen, the leader of the operation, coughed lightly and spoke first. We must defend the 2 floors of the sacred pagoda and prevent them from being breached. Otherwise, the 4 sacred pagoda will be destroyed by the remnant soul of the heavenly demon emperor, and none of us will have a good outcome. At his words, everyone nodded in agreement. Therefore, I suggest that we divide our forces. Make sure each floor has a sufficient level of strength. We cannot allow everyone to crowd into one floor. That would be the most foolish move. Chen words were clear. He wanted the top-tier experts not to group together, or it would weaken other floors and lead to fierce competition among their own ranks. I am from the Futu ancient clan, so I will go to the floor where our ancestor is, Xian Luo said with a faint smile, expressing his intention first. Me too. Moxin glanced at Xian Luo indifferently and spoke. Hearing this, Chen expression remained unchanged, though he seemed to relax slightly. Xian Luo and Moxin were formidable competitors. As long as they didn't appear on the same floor as him, his chances of obtaining the inheritance would be much higher. I choose the floor of the Sky Pillar Ancestor, Chen said with a smile. I choose the Spear Ancestor's floor. A tall, burly figure stepped forward. His body was surrounded by a terrifying murderous aura, clearly the result of countless battles. Chen could sense the murderous aura emanating from this person and knew immediately that he was a demon slayer, and most likely a senior demon slayer. This senior demon slayer's strength was also at the peak of the Great Perfection realm, appearing no weaker than Xian Luo, Moxin, or Chen. Since that's the case, I, a humble woman, must go to the floor of the Supreme Spirit Ancestor. The beautiful woman standing beside Xian Luo smiled sweetly and said softly. As they expressed their choices, the other teams began to make their selections. Qin Xian, Ling Shi, Long Xiang, you all go with Luo Li to the floor of the Supreme Spirit Ancestor. Chen turned to Qin Xian, Ling Shi, and the others. Although Luo Li had said she had her own plans, for safety's sake, Chen decided to assign all the fighting power from both teams to her. As for himself, he didn't need their help. After all, with the one Qi transforms 3 purities, Chen himself held the advantage of numbers. Moreover, he had the mystic dragon army. Upon hearing Chen's decision, Luo Li fell silent for a moment but ultimately didn't refuse. She understood that Chen was concerned for her, and that kind of care warmed her heart. Then be careful. Luo Li didn't say much more. She simply looked at Chen with her bright eyes, filled with deep concern. In just a few minutes, all the teams had completed their assignments. On each floor, there were top-tier experts of the Great Perfection realm. Clearly, these top-tier experts would be the most formidable contenders for the inheritance. Chen and Luo Li also made their intentions known regarding which floors they would go to, but it didn't cause much of a stir. After all, one was an Upper Earth Supreme, and the other a Lower Earth Supreme. There wasn't much attention paid to them. However, Xian Luo, as Moxin looked at Chen, a cold smile lingered in his eyes. The woman named by Xun'er, a soft and alluring figure, also smiled as she stared at Luo Li, her beautiful eyes flickering with a mysterious light. As the teams were assigned, the many powerful experts present could no longer hold back. In the next instant, figures shot out like streaks of light, charging directly into the ancient tower's gates. Go! Chen waved his hand and, taking the lead, shot into the 4 sacred pagodas. Behind him, Luo Li and the others immediately followed. The moment Chen's body entered the 4 sacred pagodas, He could feel spatial fluctuations around him. The next moment, his feet landed on solid ground, and the surrounding scenery began to shift. Looking around, it appeared to be a desolate, dense forest, where everything had a dry, yellowish tint, conveying a sense of abandonment. Chen scanned the area briefly before his gaze shifted towards the distant east. He could vaguely sense a vast fluctuation coming from that direction. The fluctuation gave off a powerful sense of pressure. In that area, there was also a chilling aura, one that seemed to hide endless evil. Even just sensing it slightly made Chen feel a deep, unsettling fear in his heart. That direction should be where the remnants of the floating pagoda ancestor and the heavenly demon emperor's remnant soul are located, Chen thought to himself. It seemed that he had to hurry there. Otherwise, if the extraterritorial evil beings reached it first, broke the seal, and released the heavenly demon emperor's remnant soul, this entire level would likely fall into ruin. Swish. With that thought, Chen wasted no more time. He tapped the ground with his toes and swiftly leapt onto a thick tree trunk. His figure blurred as he dashed through the dense forest, leaving only a trail of afterimages as he moved at full speed. Although moving in the air might increase his speed, that would make him an easy target and attract unwanted attention. At the moment, Chen had no idea how many extraterritorial evil beings had already entered this level, so such an approach was clearly unwise. Thankfully, even amidst the dense trees, Chen's speed was still ghostly fast. Snap! A blurry figure stepped on a fragile leaf. The leaf didn't even flutter, yet the figure vanished like a ghost. However, just as he passed through the area, Chen suddenly felt a surge of danger. He halted abruptly in midair. Boom! In front of him, a withered yellow tree suddenly erupted into black, roaring flames. The terrifying heat distorted the space around it. Crack, crack. The black flames burned fiercely. Then, applause echoed from within the fire, and Chen saw two figures slowly walking out of the flames. Chen's gaze sharpened. The hair of the two figures was burning with flames, but the flames were a strange, eerie black. We just encountered two women from the Great Thousand Worlds, and our leader chased after them. Who would have thought we'd find another unlucky fool here? One of the figures with flaming black hair sneered, his eyes gleaming with coldness and killing intent. They're too weak. According to the levels of the Great Thousand Worlds, they're just a mere upper Earth Supreme. They're practically ants, the other figure said indifferently, his gaze toward Chen completely devoid of emotion. Extraterritorial evil beings? Chen raised an eyebrow, a faint smile appearing on his face. From his perception, the two figures before him were not weak. They were both at the Great Perfection level, though they appeared to be at a relatively lower tier of Great Perfection. Wrong. We are from the Flame Demon Clan. The extraterritorial evil beings are something you native creatures of the Great Thousand Worlds made up for us, one of the figures corrected. Chen nodded faintly and said, whatever. Who cares about titles when you're about to die? The two Flame Demon Clan experts froze for a moment, then grinned widely. However, the coldness and cruelty in their eyes grew stronger. I'll slowly roast him with demonic flames until he's cooked. One of them twisted his neck, speaking cruelly. By the way, what did those two women you mentioned look like? Chen suddenly asked with a smile. But the two Flame Demon Clan experts looked at him as though he were an idiot, clearly not planning to share any information with him. It seems I have no choice but to force your mouths open. Chen shrugged nonchalantly and said with a smile. Boom. The violent black demonic flame erupted like a volcano, suddenly bursting from the bodies of the two Flame Demon Clan experts. As the flames surged, the forest around them was instantly set ablaze. You're asking for death. Soon, you'll beg for your life, but be unable to escape. As the demonic flames raged, two dark shadows shot forward, their scorching heat waves engulfing the area, covering Chen. These two Flame Demon Clan experts were cunning and cautious. Even though Chen appeared to be merely an upper Earth Supreme, they still attacked simultaneously, demonstrating extreme caution. However, Chen merely smiled slightly as he watched the dark shadows rush toward him. Is having more people really impressive? The moment his words fell, he suddenly charged forward. At the same time, the two Flame Demon Clan experts' pupils shrank sharply, for they saw two identical figures appear beside Chen. These two figures, with a fiercer momentum, shot forward at them with overwhelming force. Not good. In that instant, both experts from the Flame Demon Clan felt their hearts sink. They knew that this time, they had truly met their match. Boom. In the desolate, withered forest, a dull sound suddenly swept across the area. The black flames raged like a storm, reducing everything in its path to ashes. However, the black flames did not last long before gradually extinguishing. Rustle. Through the charred forest, a figure walked out slowly. It was Chen. With a blank expression, he looked down at his somewhat darkened palm. As spiritual energy surged, the darkness quickly dissipated, and the burns on his palm healed at an astonishing rate. Behind him, two figures could be seen kneeling on the ground, their heads drooping weakly. The black flames burning atop, their heads extinguished as their life force faded away. In their eyes remained a lingering disbelief and horror. They clearly had never imagined that a mere Upper Earth Supreme like Chen could possess such terrifying power. It really is them. Chen couldn't be bothered to look at the cold corpses, instead raising his head to gaze in the direction of another part of the forest. His brows furrowed slightly. The previous battle had been without suspense. Though Chen was just an Upper Earth Supreme, his combat ability had far surpassed that of a typical great perfection. These two Flame Demon Clan experts were at most only at the level of great perfection, so facing Chen, they had no escape but death. However, from the words the two Flame Demon Clan experts spoke before their death, Chen had learned about the two women they mentioned earlier. Just as he had suspected, those two women were Qing Shuang and Qing Ling from the Futo ancient clan. After all, only they could have entered this lair and been women as well. It seemed that they had encountered the leaders of the Flame Demon Clan. Although Chen didn't yet know the exact strength of that leader, the fact that they had forced Qing Shuang into such a desperate situation clearly indicated that the leader was a top-tier great perfection expert. Chen gazed off into the distance, contemplating. It was clear he was hesitating whether to offer assistance. After all, he didn't have much fondness for the Futo ancient clan. Even though his mother came from Qing Shuang's lineage, they had turned a blind eye to his mother's imprisonment all these years, which had left Chen with lingering resentment. Chen pondered for a moment, then lightly curled his lips, his body springing forward like a rock. He shot toward that direction. Though he held a grudge against the Futo ancient clan, he could not turn a blind eye, especially when Qing Shuang had previously tried to help him when he was in trouble. That alone was enough to make Chen feel he couldn't just stand by. His resentment toward the Futo ancient clan had no reason to spill over onto innocent people. If he did that, it would only make him seem petty. Boom. A fist of black flames, like a falling meteor, came crashing down. The terrifying force shattered the space, bringing a devastating aura. Qing Shuang, somewhat disheveled, grasped Qing Ling's fair wrist. Her body erupted with spiritual light, her speed surging instantly. Whoosh! The fiery punch light whistled down from behind, striking a mountain peak. In an instant, the mountain was shattered into pieces, with countless boulders turning to ash in the blaze of black flames. Seeing the terrifying destructive power of that punch light, Qing Ling, who was caught by Qing Shuang, turned pale in the face. Hee, two beauties, why put up such a struggle? Come to me obediently, let me taste the beauty of the great thousand worlds. A sharp, mocking laugh rang out from behind. There, a black flame howled toward them. Amidst the flames was a burly man, his hair burning with fierce black fire, his face etched with fiery patterns. He stared lecherously at the two fleeing figures ahead, his tongue licking his lips, his eyes practically bursting with desire. Qing Shuang, don't worry about me, just go. Qing Ling, feeling the rising heat from behind, said with a pale face. Earlier, they had unfortunately run into these so-called Flame Demon Clan experts in this area. Qing Shuang had been injured unexpectedly, forcing them to flee. However, the Flame Demon Clan expert's strength was formidable, and even at her peak, Qing Shuang could only barely contend with him. Now, injured and burdened by Qing Ling, escaping was a perilous task. No, Qing Shuang gritted her teeth. She could sense the intense desire and brutality in the Flame Demon Clan expert's eyes. If Qing Ling fell into his hands, death would almost be a mercy. Go first. I'll hold him off. Qing Shuang's eyes gleamed with coldness as she clenched her teeth. Qing Shuang, you're no match for him now. Qing Ling said urgently. If we keep being chased, we'll be caught sooner or later. Then both of us will be captured, Qing Shuang said sternly. Biting her lip, Qing Ling's eyes welled with tears as she nodded forcefully. Her delicate figure darted in another direction, racing away. Qing Shuang stopped, turned around, and glared coldly at the rapidly approaching Flame Demon Clan expert. Sacrificing yourself to save others? How touching. The Flame Demon Clan expert slowed down, sneering as he eyed Qing Shuang. His gaze greedily swept over her delicate, graceful figure. Forget it. I'll just capture this exquisite beauty first and enjoy her. The Flame Demon Clan expert licked his lips and grinned. Qing Shuang's beautiful eyes grew even colder. She clenched her jade hand, and a deep blue, long sword materialized. An intense chill radiated from the sword, freezing the air around her. The sword seemed forged from pure ice, and as it appeared, a blue light spread across the area, turning the surroundings into a frozen world. Such power clearly indicated that this was a genuine high-grade sacred artifact. The Flame Demon Clan leader's eyes sharpened, and he smirked. He raised his hand, black flames gathering in his palm, quickly transforming into a black flame orb. The orb emitted an overwhelming heat, a heat so intense it seemed to stir the wicked desires deep within a person's heart. Prolonged exposure to its temperature could cloud the mind. This flame orb was no ordinary item. Roar! The Flame Demon Clan leader shot forward, and the black flame orb sent out numerous black flame serpents, their massive jaws filled with molten black fire, charging viciously toward Qing Shuang. Qing Shuang's face was icy. Her hands gripped the ice sword tightly, and with a sudden shake, the chilling aura exploded. In mere moments, as the serpents neared, the air froze, and the serpents were encased in solid ice, immobilized. When the Flame Demon Clan leader saw this, he grinned cunningly. Boom! The fire-engulfed serpents suddenly exploded, black flames ravaging the surroundings. The frozen world Qing Shuang had created shattered almost instantly. Puffed! Qing Shuang coughed up a mouthful of blood. She had already been seriously injured, and now the Flame Demon Clan leader's underhanded move had worsened her condition. Her spiritual energy surged wildly, causing her body to ache and her flesh to burn. Haha, beauty, come to me. The Flame Demon Clan leader laughed wildly as he gazed skyward. With a sudden movement, he appeared right in front of Qing Shuang, reaching out with a massive hand to grab her slender, pale neck. In the distance, Qing Ling's eyes filled with despair as she watched this scene unfold. Qing Shuang's expression remained mostly unchanged as she stared at the approaching Flame Demon Clan leader. A flash of determination flickered in her eyes, and her jade-like hand quickly formed a seal. Her spiritual energy surged violently within her body. She was preparing to self-destruct. Sister Qing Shuang. From afar, Qing Ling, sensing the chaotic energy raging through the air, turned pale and trembled as she screamed. Vile wench! The Flame Demon Clan leader's face changed drastically at this, and with a furious growl, he quickly attempted to retreat. However, just as he began to retreat, two figures suddenly appeared in front of him. Their fists, infused with crystal light, struck with devastating force, gathering an overwhelming surge of spiritual energy as they collided violently with the Flame Demon Clan leader's chest. The attack was so sudden that the leader barely had time to react. He swiftly raised his palms in defense, black flames blazing fiercely from them, seemingly forcing the attackers back. But the two figures ignored the domineering black flames entirely, their crystal-infused fists crashing heavily into the leader's palms. Boom! A deep, resounding thud echoed through the air as the Flame Demon Clan leader was knocked back, his body jolting as he was sent flying. But what shocked him wasn't the strength of the attackers. It was the crystal light spreading across his palms. Wherever the light touched, even his black flames began to dim rapidly, as if being sealed away. What is this? The leader gasped in horror, retreating even further as he desperately summoned his own power to expel and suppress the mysterious crystal light. As the Flame Demon Clan leader retreated, another figure flashed in front of Qing Shuang. He looked out at the tumultuous spiritual energy within her, furrowing his brows. Without hesitation, he struck her chest with his palm. A burst of crystal light radiated from his hand, and a sealing power flowed into Qing Shuang's body, temporarily suppressing her volatile spiritual energy. Gradually, her energy calmed, and as her closed eyes fluttered open slightly, she saw a familiar and handsome face. Mu Chen. She whispered in surprise, about to speak further, but before she could finish, everything went black, and she fainted. As she began to fall, Mu Chen swiftly reached out, catching her delicate, slender waist. He looked at her, injured and unconscious, and couldn't help but furrow his brow in frustration. Who dares to ruin my plans? A furious roar echoed from behind them. Hearing the enraged shout from behind him, Mu Chen turned, still holding Qing Shuang's slim waist, and coldly locked eyes with the Flame Demon Clan leader, whose body was wreathed in black flames. The leader glared at him, his face twisted with fury, like a savage beast. But in the face of the leader's wrath, Mu Chen remained expressionless. He glanced at the distance where Qing Ling, who had earlier fled, had turned back upon hearing the disturbance. Mu Chen. When she saw his figure, Qing Ling paused in surprise. Upon seeing Qing Shuang, unconscious in his arms, her bright eyes became filled with complexity. She clearly hadn't expected that, at this critical moment, Mu Chen would be the one to appear and save them. Mu Chen gently patted Qing Shuang's body with his palm, enveloping her in spiritual energy and sending her safely to Qing Ling's side. Watch over her. Qing Ling quickly caught Qing Shuang, biting her lip in gratitude. She looked up at Mu Chen and whispered, "Thank you." Not long ago, she had dismissed Mu Chen, thinking that his strength as a mere Upper Earth Supreme wasn't worth noting. Sometimes, she even thought he was arrogant and ungrateful for refusing their help. But now, she felt regret and shame for those past thoughts. The young man before her, despite having the bloodline of the Futu ancient clan, had never received any cultivation resources from the clan. Yet, even so, his achievements now were hardly inferior to those of Mu Xin, Xin Luo, and the other young masters. In fact, in some ways, he was perhaps even more outstanding than Xin Luo, Mu Xian, and the others. Be careful, he's very strong. Qing Ling stepped back but couldn't help but warn him, having witnessed the formidable strength of the Flame Demon Clan's leader. Even at the peak of Qing Shuang's power, she could only barely hold her ground against him. Mu Chen nodded slightly. His gaze had been fixed on the Flame Demon Clan's leader from the beginning, sensing a dangerous aura. Previously, Mu Chen was able to make the leader of the Flame Demon Clan retreat only because he caught him off guard. Now that the leader was prepared, it would be far more difficult to achieve the same result. The black and white Mu Chen appeared at this moment, hovering at his sides. The three figures all fixed their watchful eyes on the Flame Demon Clan's leader. Under the gaze of the three Mu Chens, the brutal glare in the leader's eyes faded slightly. In its place was a look of solemnity and sharpness. His vision and perception were far superior to the two Flame Demon Clan experts that Mu Chen had killed earlier. Therefore, he could sense that although Mu Chen appeared to be merely an Upper Earth Supreme in strength, his actual combat power must far exceed what it seemed. The leader had already realized this from their earlier lightning-fast exchange. "Kid, hand over those two women, and I'll let you leave." The leader of the Flame Demon Clan's eyes flickered before he spoke coldly. However, Mu Chen merely smiled and suddenly his gaze turned as sharp as a blade. He coldly said, "Scram. You're asking for death." The leader of the Flame Demon Clan's eyes turned savage. Though Mu Chen seemed difficult to deal with, anyone who dared to speak to him like that could not be spared. Before, you only took advantage of a sneak attack. Since you're seeking death, I will grant it to you. The leader of the Flame Demon Clan grinned viciously. He stomped his foot, and it seemed as though the entire sky shook. Black flames erupted from his body, and the temperature in the world surged, causing the very air to catch fire. A fierce and unmatched oppressive force exploded from the leader's body. Qing Ling, who had stepped back, felt the pressure, and her delicate face changed slightly. The leader's strength was undoubtedly at the peak of the great perfection stage. Facing such an opponent, even figures like Xin Luo or Mo Xin would likely find it challenging. Flame Demon Hand. The leader of the Flame Demon Clan glared at Mu Chen, then suddenly slapped his palm. Immediately, the sky was filled with black flames that gathered together and formed a massive fiery demon hand, which came crashing down toward Mu Chen. Before the shockwave of the hand even landed, the earth below had already caved in, and the forests were instantly turned into a sea of fire. The demon hand roared down, and Mu Chen's gaze tightened. He took a deep breath, then made a single-handed seal. Immediately, three powerful beams of spiritual energy erupted from the three Mu Chens. Roar. The three beams of spiritual energy merged together, expanding like a colossal pillar of light that seemed to split the heavens and earth. Without hesitation, it clashed fiercely with the demon hand. Boom. The world shook as the black flames and the spiritual energy beams erupted in a violent explosion. Swish. At the moment when the two fierce attacks collided, the Flame Demon Clan leader's ghostly figure appeared in front of Chen. He held in his palm a burning black flame pearl, which suddenly shot out countless rays of fire. Binding demon web. These rays quickly intertwined, forming an endless net of fire that instantly wrapped around the three Chens. Once you fall into my demon web, even those at the great perfection of the Earth Supreme level and the great thousand worlds are as good as dead. The leader of the Flame Demon Clan laughed coldly after landing the strike. Boom. However, as his cold laugh faded, dazzling spiritual energy erupted from within the demon web, bursting like a blazing sun. In the next instant, an enormous purple-gold shadow emerged from within the web. The purple-gold radiance seemed to carry the aura of immortality, and under its influence, it forcefully destroyed the fiery demon web. Immortal Divine Runes, Thousand Transformations, Immortal Divine Fist. When the demon web shattered, a low growl seemed to echo through the air. The Flame Demon Commander's pupils contracted as he saw a massive purple-gold fist, resembling a colossal spirit god, appear in the sky. The fist, carrying immense power, crushed space itself as it came hurtling toward him. Flame Demon Shield. In a panic, the Flame Demon Commander quickly gripped the black flame magic orb. Instantly, a wild blaze erupted, transforming into a gigantic black fire shield. The shield was engraved with grotesque skull patterns. Boom. The purple-gold giant fist slammed into the demon shield with overwhelming force. The clash of two terrifying powers shook the heavens. However, the immortal light radiating from the fist seemed to suppress the furious demon flames, as if the flames were being stifled by some unseen force. Bang! The demon shield, unable to withstand the assault, exploded in an instant. The Flame Demon Commander's body was sent flying like a cannonball, crashing into a mountain peak. The entire mountain shattered in the process. However, before the debris could even settle, the Flame Demon Commander shot back into the sky, his silhouette rising like a rocket. He stood in the air, his expression dark, gazing into the distance. There, a massive purple-gold figure stood tall in the sky. On its shoulders, three Chen figures, their expressions icy, stared down at him. Is this the so-called Supreme Dharmakaya of the Great Thousand Worlds? The Flame Demon Commander's eyes gleamed with a cold, murderous light. Fine. Today I'll show you the true power of my Flame Demon Clan. He clasped his hands together, and black flames began to burn furiously in his eyes, as if they were about to scorch his very pupils. Buzz! Suddenly, the sky behind him trembled violently. Black flames surged and gathered, and after a few moments, a massive black demon statue, towering tens of thousands of feet, materialized behind the Flame Demon Commander. The statue was engulfed in black flames, exuding an aura of boundless brutality and slaughter. A terrifying, oppressive force emanated from the demon statue. In the distance, Chen's eyes narrowed as he watched this scene. His expression shifted with shock. Clearly, he hadn't anticipated that the Flame Demon Commander would be this troublesome. Such a power was truly astonishing. Based on his estimation, even a typical Earth Supreme at the Great Perfection would struggle against the Flame Demon Commander in this form. Chen took a deep breath, his expression becoming grave. The Flame Demon Commander's strength was indeed formidable. It seemed that if he wanted to defeat him today, he would have to prepare for a battle of epic proportions. With a single hand, Chen formed a seal, and his immortal golden body began to glow with purple gold light. As the light swirled, a powerful and unmatched pressure began to radiate from him. However, just as both sides were ready to clash, an overwhelming, icy aura suddenly swept across the battlefield. Both Chen and the Flame Demon Commander were taken aback. Their gazes turned toward the source, where Qing Shuang, who had previously been unconscious, had now awakened. Holding her frost sword, her eyes, filled with cold intent, were locked on the Flame Demon Commander. This troublesome woman. The Flame Demon Commander's expression darkened at the sight. Chen had already become a massive headache, requiring his full attention. With the addition of Qing Shuang, even he would have trouble overcoming them. His eyes flashed with malice, and with a cold sneer, he spoke. You're lucky today. But next time we meet, I'll tear your Supreme Dharmakaya apart with my demon golem. As soon as the words left his mouth, the demon golem beneath him transformed into a black storm, flames burning within the storm as it swept him away at an astonishing speed. Chen was caught off guard by the Flame Demon Commander's sudden retreat. He blinked in surprise, watching the direction in which the flame demon commander fled, his brow furrowing in thought. Although the skirmish had been brief, it had shown him just how tricky and formidable the extraterritorial evil clan's warriors were. This flame demon commander was undoubtedly among the top-tier strength of these invaders. But how many others of his level had entered the ancient sacred abyss? Chen slowly withdrew his gaze, pursing his lips. It seemed that seizing the Eightfold Pagoda would not be an easy task after all. You don't need to intervene. I can handle this. Chen turned around, his gaze lingering on the direction where the flame demon commander had fled. He spoke to Qing Shuang in a calm voice. It was clear to him. Qing Shuang was merely holding up a facade of strength. Her earlier display was nothing more than a bluff. If this had been before, Qing Ling might have scoffed at Chen's words. But having witnessed his methods firsthand, she could only nod in agreement this time. A flush of pallor returned to Qing Shuang's delicate face. She pressed her lips together and said softly, "That man was too wary of you. That's the only reason he panicked the moment I appeared." Though proud and reserved, Qing Shuang was well aware of her own limits. If Chen could see through her act, there was no way the powerful flame demon commander couldn't. Yet that commander had still chosen to flee, and the only explanation was that Chen posed too much of a threat. The commander simply couldn't afford to split his focus between Chen and her. Chen chuckled quietly at her words, then shook his head and said no more on the matter. "How bad are your injuries?" "I'll recover after some rest." Qing Shuang gave a slight nod. After all, she was a great perfection-level powerhouse, with an extremely resilient vitality. "Thank you for what you did." Qing Shuang looked straight at Chen, her bright eyes earnest. She knew that if Chen hadn't shown up when he did, both she and Qing Ling would have suffered a terrible fate. She had already experienced the brutality of the flame demon commander. Chen waved it off. "You were going to help me earlier. Now we're even." With that, he turned, ready to leave. "Chen, travel with us." Qing Ling quickly called out as she saw him preparing to depart. Who knows how many powerful extraterritorial evil clan members are lurking in the 4 sacred pagodas. We'll be safer together. That earlier encounter had shaken her deeply. With Qing Shuang still recovering, if they ran into another powerful foe and Chen wasn't there, they might not be so lucky. Chen raised an eyebrow. Qing Shuang, once healed, would indeed be a formidable ally, but he wasn't the type to travel with people he didn't fully trust. "If you're interested," Qing Shuang said after a pause, "we can tell you more about the Futu ancient clan, including your mother." Chen halted. Then, with a wave of his hand, he said, "All right, let's go together." As he swept his sleeve, a surge of spiritual light surged forth, lifting Qing Shuang and Qing Ling into the air. The 3 of them turned into streaks of light, soaring deep into the distant void. "How is my mother now?" Chen finally asked, breaking the silence during their journey. "Aunt Jing is doing well." Both Qing Shuang and Qing Ling replied after exchanging glances. Chen gave a cold laugh. "Being imprisoned counts as well." Qing Shuang shook her head slightly. "You don't understand your mother's status in the Futu ancient clan. With her strength, even the first elder couldn't subdue her by force. Some time ago, the first elder and your mother had a sudden confrontation. In that clash, she seized control of the entire clan protection array, forcing the first elder to back down. And the result of that retreat was a restriction. No heavenly supremes from the Futu ancient clan could be dispatched against you." Qing Shuang looked Chen in the eye. "She allowed herself to be imprisoned. It was her choice for your sake. If she hadn't done so willingly, imprisoning her would have come at a great cost to the clan." Chen's heart trembled. He suddenly recalled, at that critical moment when he'd broken into the Futu clan's ancestral land, it was someone in the shadows who had ensured his escape. It must have been her. "No wonder," he muttered. "Even though I've started drawing the attention of the Futu ancient clan, no heavenly supremes have made a move against me. So all along, it was my mother, protecting me from behind the scenes." His expression turned complicated, a warm current surging in his chest. Perhaps since infancy, he had never known the warmth of her embrace. Yet in places he couldn't see, she had been shielding him all along. A kind of love and sacrifice, asking for nothing in return. Chen pressed his lips together tightly. "You all say she's part of your Qing bloodline," he said quietly. "Then why did you stand by while she was imprisoned?" Qing Shuang sighed. The Futu ancient clan is fractured into many factions. The most powerful ones now are the Profound lineage and the Ink lineage. Our Qing bloodline was once strong back when Aunt Jing's father, your grandfather, led us. But after his passing, the Qing bloodline began to decline. Soon after, Aunt Jing left the clan and disappeared for decades. That must have been the time when she met your father and had you. When she returned, the elders discovered her bloodline had been passed outside the clan. That's when she was imprisoned. By then, most of the Elder Council's seats belonged to the Profound and Ink lineages. We tried to fight it, but we couldn't change the outcome. Even among the Qing bloodline, some felt resentment. Aunt Jing was once our chosen leader, yet she abandoned her role. To them, she had failed in her duty. And so, she was imprisoned. Mu Chen frowned. Not everyone wants to be your Qing bloodline's leader. Why should your will be forced on my mother? Although they hadn't interacted much, Mu Chen could still sense that his mother was not the type to desire leadership. She also didn't want to bear the heavy burden of the entire Qing bloodline. Qing Shuang sighed with a wry smile and said, "Who can truly explain such matters? But those who oppose her are few, and the majority of the Qing bloodline still holds Aunt Jing in respect. They are always looking for ways to free her from confinement." Mu Chen fell silent for a moment, his expression softening slightly. He knew that Qing Shuang had no reason to deceive him because he would eventually find out the truth. Once I break through to the Heavenly Supreme Realm, I will go to the Futu ancient clan myself and rescue my mother with my own hands. Mu Chen took a deep breath, his tone calm but resolute. Qing Shuang and Qing Ling were both stunned, exchanging a glance. Break through to the Heavenly Supreme Realm? They could sense the confidence in Mu Chen's words, which left them momentarily speechless. After all, the Heavenly Supreme Realm was far beyond their reach. Although Qing Shuang had already reached the perfect Earth Supreme, she knew that the gap to the Heavenly Supreme seemed almost insurmountable. In this vast and endless great thousand worlds, while one might dominate as an Earth Supreme, only those who reach the Heavenly Supreme Realm touch the pinnacle of the world. The Earth Supreme reigns as a king, a regional ruler, but the Heavenly Supreme is an emperor, overlooking all kings. Supreme and unparalleled. If it were anyone else speaking with such confidence about reaching the Heavenly Supreme Realm, they might privately shake their heads. But facing Mu Chen, they both felt that it might not be entirely impossible. This young man had reached this stage through his own efforts, without relying on the cultivation resources of the Futu ancient clan. Though his strength was only that of an upper Earth Supreme, even against someone as powerful as the Flame Demon Commander, he could force the latter to retreat. This kind of achievement was likely no less impressive than that of Xian Luo and the others. They could imagine that if Mu Chen had started with the same advantages as them, how unreachable he would be by now. Qing Shuang and Qing Ling couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. This Mu Chen truly was the child of Aunt Jing. However, even if you reach the Heavenly Supreme Realm, I'm afraid you won't gain any advantage at the Futu ancient clan. Qing Ling couldn't help but speak up. She didn't think a spirit-grade Heavenly Supreme could just do as he pleased in the Futu ancient clan. Mu Chen merely smiled without saying anything in response. Qing Shuang appeared thoughtful. The reason Aunt Jing had willingly endured years of confinement in the Futu ancient clan was not because she feared them, but because she wanted to protect Mu Chen. Back then, the still-growing Mu Chen had been her greatest weakness. But once Mu Chen stepped into the Heavenly Supreme Realm, that weakness would be minimized. If he were to appear at the Futu ancient clan then, it would not be so easy for Aunt Jing to remain as she had before. By then, facing such a powerful mother-son duo, the old-timers of the Futu ancient clan would have no choice but to pay a heavy price if they wanted to stop them. They had missed their best opportunity. The sin child they had once forgotten had grown to a point where they could no longer do anything about it. Mu Chen was unaware of Qing Shuang's thoughts. His gaze turned toward the distance, and he said, "Is your goal also the Eightfold Pagoda? If so, I won't let you have it." Having mastered one Qi transforms 3 purities, Mu Chen was now considering obtaining the Eightfold Pagoda, another of the 36 supreme divine techniques. Once he reached the perfect Earth Supreme, even against a spirit-grade Heavenly Supreme, he would have the power to stand his ground. Qing Shuang shook her head and said coolly, "Don't think about me. You should focus on how to compete with Xian Luo and Moxin for the Eightfold Pagoda. They will never allow you to touch it." Mu Chen chuckled lightly. "If they want to fight, let them. If they want me to back off, they'll have to see if they have the ability." Upon hearing this, Qing Ling couldn't help but gaze at Mu Chen with a glimmer of admiration in her eyes. Over the years, among the younger generation of the Futu ancient clan, Xian Luo and Moxin had been incredibly famous. Even the most talented person in the Qing bloodline, Qing Shuang, couldn't compare to them. But the Muchen before them, facing Xian Luo and Moxin, showed no fear whatsoever. His confident and carefree attitude even made Qing Ling's heart skip a beat. Don't be too careless. Xian Luo and Moxin are said to have mastered a near-peerless divine ability. Among those of the same level, they can be considered almost invincible, Qing Shuang reminded. Near-peerless divine ability, you say? Mu Chen's eyes slightly narrowed, but he didn't seem too surprised. After all, Xian Luo and Moxin were among the most outstanding of the younger generation from the Futu ancient clan. If they didn't have some trump cards up their sleeves, it would have been hard to believe. I've never underestimated them. But I also hope they won't underestimate me too much. Otherwise, they might have to pay quite a price, Mu Chen said with a smile, his gaze drifting into the distance. Qing Shuang looked at the young man before her, who, despite his restrained demeanor, still exuded an undeniable sharpness. She couldn't help but gently bite her lip, and in her eyes, a trace of anticipation quietly flickered. Because she, too, was eager to know who among the younger generation of the Futu ancient clan would emerge as the true number one when Mu Chen faced off against Xian Luo and Moxin.